Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had fun in your breakout rooms and that you got prepped to have successful conversations with your legislators. What you just did is really similar to what you're going to do when you go to your legislator meetings. As a reminder, when it's time for your meeting with your legislator, you'll find the meeting on either the Legislator AM or PM tab. If you know the time of your meeting, you can scroll through the list of meetings to find it, or you can use the search sessions feature. You can search for your meeting by entering either your legislator's name or your legislative district number. When you find it, join the meeting by clicking the yellow Join Here button on the right of your screen. And remember, join the breakout room about 10 minutes early so that you can meet with your lobby coach and the rest of the folks in your meeting before you meet with your legislator. Now we'll move on to getting to know Unrestrict. So Unrestrict Minnesota works to protect, expand, and destigmatize access to abortion care and all reproductive health care in Minnesota through public education, advocacy, and the law. Our vision is to achieve full reproductive justice, an organizing framework created by Black women where every person has the ability to decide if, when, and how to become a parent, to raise healthy children in safe and thriving communities, and to have gender freedom and bodily autonomy. Who we are a group of nearly 30 organizations that work together to promote this mission. We are led by Erin McQuaid, who will speak to you in a moment. She's our campaign manager, by Megan Peterson, Executive Director of Gender Justice, Shayla Walker of Our Justice, and myself, Executive Director of Pro-Choice Minnesota. Today, we're going to talk about abortion. Most of us look at this and we think, wow, that's pretty controversial, but we do have to ask the question, is it? Excuse me? Turns out no. 7 in 10 Minnesotans believe that abortion should be legal and available to pregnant people. 59% think that abortion might be a good option for them personally. 77% of Minnesotans don't struggle with their opinion on abortion, and 70% agree that Minnesotans should be able to access abortion healthcare without the government interfering. What's especially interesting is that once you move past the decision point, right, this choice that we talk about in the pro-choice movement, Minnesotans agree that abortion should be safe and accessible and medically up to date. Our state constitution even reflects this majority opinion. There was a decision in 1995 called Doe versus Gomez, where the state Supreme Court decided that the government should not try to sway a person in favor of one pregnancy outcome over another. So carrying the pregnancy to term and having a child or having an abortion. This means that abortion is legal in Minnesota, regardless of the status of Roe versus Wade. Yet, there are restrictions that impact all of our access to abortion in this state. There's a mandate to provide medically irrelevant information to patients and a 24-hour waiting period, which we're advocating for a bill to repeal today. There's a mandate for fetal tissue to be cremated or buried. There's a mandate that doctors provide detailed patient information to the state as a form of surveillance, and a number of other pieces that are in direct conflict with our state constitution and with the opinions of the majority of Minnesotans. What's really, really important right now is that there is a state or a case moving through the US Supreme Court called Dobbs versus Jackson that could change the way we access abortion in the upper Midwest and across the country. Dobbs versus Jackson was heard by SCOTUS in December, and the decision will come out in May or June of this year. The justices made it very, very clear that they are ready to gut or overturn Roe versus Wade as a part of this decision. If and when that happens, Minnesota will become the only state in the upper Midwest with legal and accessible abortion. Though, as we said with those restrictions, we have a long way to go on accessibility. Our surrounding states have trigger bans or pre-Roe restrictions that would automatically go into place if Roe is overturned. The Guttmacher Institute estimates that we in Minnesota would see a 371% increase of people seeking abortion care in our state at the 8 clinics where we provide abortions when this occurs. So what can you do? What can we do together? Reproductive Freedom Lobby Day is the opportunity to make your voice heard. You can talk to your legislator about why reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy are critical for your health, your livelihood, and your future. We want our legislators to stand up for what Minnesotans believe and what we really need, not to make those decisions without us. Our primary goals today are to demonstrate the overwhelming public support for reproductive freedom in Minnesota, to bolster legislators' confidence, to proactively speak about abortion. We want you to ask your legislators if they will support and co-author the Patient's Right to Know Act. We want to show our legislators the power and diversity of our coalition, and we're here to share our reproductive justice agenda. But it's so much more than that. We're building a state where all people can decide whether and when to become parents. So I'm going to hand this off to Erin McQuaid, who's going to talk a little bit about the foundations and what reproductive justice is.
Thanks, Maggie. So part of the reason that we're introducing this framework to you all today is because Unrestrict Minnesota does our work through the lens of reproductive justice. Reproductive justice is a contemporary framework and movement that was created and led by Black women. And this movement analyzes the ability of any person to determine their reproductive destiny and how that destiny is linked directly to the conditions in their community. So it's not just a matter of individual choice or access, but how the conditions in the community are created to allow people to have and own their own reproductive destiny. The primary principles of reproductive justice are the right to have a child, the right to not have a child, the right to parent children you choose to have in safe and sustainable communities, and bodily autonomy and gender freedom for every human being. It is so important that we understand that this is about more than just abortion, though abortion is the most attacked part of reproductive justice work. This is also about our right to live and thrive and determine our own reproductive destiny. One thing we talk a lot about at Unrestrict is that this is not about what individual people believe about abortion, it's what can the government force people to do. And at Unrestrict Minnesota, no matter what your personal view is, we know that every person should be able to decide for themselves whether, when, and how they become parents. But part of our work at Unrestrict Minnesota is advocating for a full reproductive justice agenda that hits all of those four primary principles to make sure that we aren't just targeting the one principle of the right to not have a child, but that Minnesotans are supported in their right to have children, raise children they choose to have in safe and sustainable communities, and have gender freedom and bodily autonomy. So this is just a small look at our reproductive justice legislative agenda. And we'll put the link in the chat for you to explore more. There's bills on there that talk about menstrual equity, banning conversion therapy, the missing and murdered Indigenous women in Minnesota, missing and murdered African-American women in Minnesota, comprehensive sex education. These are things that we know need to happen in Minnesota to achieve our vision of full reproductive justice. You can go to the next slide. There you go. Part of why in Minnesota we are working so hard in just this state, right? We know that abortion access and rights are being targeted across the country is because we have a pretty unique and special way of looking at abortion in the state of Minnesota that differs from the federal government. So there was a 1995 Minnesota Supreme Court case called Doe v. Gomez. And the question that the Minnesota Supreme Court was answering was, can the Minnesota legislature prohibit the use of taxpayer dollars from paying for abortion care and related services? And their answer was no. The state cannot preference one pregnancy outcome, carrying a pregnancy to term, over another, abortion. And further, the Minnesota Supreme Court ruled that the Minnesota Constitution provides broader protections for abortion rights than the United States Constitution. So our right to decide to have an abortion and have an abortion are fundamental rights like that of free speech, freedom of and from religion, free press. They are foundational and fundamental rights, which means that the court grants a really high level of scrutiny when looking at abortion restriction laws. So part of the work that we are doing in Minnesota is to avail ourselves of the rights we already have under the Minnesota Constitution and the ones that Minnesotans agree with. So there is litigation right now to remove the abortion restrictions that Maggie was talking about through the courts. This lawsuit is called Doe v. Minnesota, and it was filed in May of 2019, so just a little under 3 years ago. Our plaintiff providers, Dr. Doe and Mary Moe, and then our wonderful partners, Our Justice and the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. And basically what this litigation argues is that under the constitutional protections established in Doe v. Gomez, the current abortion restrictions are out of step with contemporary medical practice, violate the constitutional protections for individual privacy, and fail to honor the diverse religious traditions of Minnesota. So that's a little bit about who we are and why we do what we're doing. The work we're doing today is an important and crucial piece of advancing reproductive justice in Minnesota. We need to remove the restrictions, we need to change the laws, and then we also need to do the work of preparing Minnesota to be a place where abortion care is part of pregnancy care and a part of our mainstream healthcare system. So the next thing on our agenda starts at 11, which means you have 39 minutes of, 39 minutes of a break time, and you should really enjoy it. We will see you back at 11 o'clock for our next activity.